Hello and welcome. I'm Bimbo Luyede. Tonight, Africa appears set to stamp out terrorism in the continent as AU Army chiefs meet in Bamako, Mali. Nigerian Army busts Boko Haram commerce wing, destroys goods and seafoods meant for terrorists. We kickstart our review of 100 days of Muhammadu Buhari in office, and we begin tonight with politics. And hundreds of desperate migrants who have been stuck at a Budapest railway station for days have set off on foot, saying they intend to walk all the way to Austria.
And on business news, National Pension Commission set to engage operators on the optimization of over 5 trillion naira for infrastructure and real estate development.
And on sports news, Sunday Olise starts life as head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria in the 2017 Africa Cup of Nations qualifier against Tanzania.
We begin tonight with a broad-based collaborative effort to curb terrorism across Africa. African Union Chiefs of Defense Staff and Ministers of Defense are meeting in Bamako, the capital of Mali, as part of a multinational approach to fight terrorism ravaging the continent's regions. Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, General Gabriel Ononishakin, is attending the meeting, aimed at enhancing mutual cooperation and fostering peace and security in Africa. A statement from the Acting Director, Defense Information, Colonel Rabi Abubakar, says issues being discussed include the global menace of terrorism, which requires a collective approach. The focus is particularly on the threats of Boko Haram in Nigeria, other Lake Chad Basin Commission member countries, and the threats of Al-Shabaab in East and Central Africa. African defense chiefs agreed on the need to enhance operational cooperation among the affected countries in order to increase the effectiveness of action against terrorism. The meeting will soon classify the threats and risks into 4 major categories, namely terrorism, organized crime, illegal immigration, and separatism. General Olonishakin is expected to brief the continental defense chiefs about the efforts Nigeria and its Chad Basin allies are putting in place to contain Boko Haram's aggression in the sub-region. The 7th Division of the Nigerian Army says it has destroyed over 2,000 cartons of dried fish, estimated at 60 million naira, and seized from suspected Boko Haram terrorists in Borno State. The spokesperson of the division, Colonel Tukur Gusau, who showed the received items to journalists in Maiduguri, said the insurgents who have resorted to robbery and cattle rustling are believed to also be engaged in commerce to fund their activities. The army attributes recent victories to collaborative efforts with the Nigerian Air Force and vows to pursue and destroy all terrorist logistic chains and supply routes.
There are about 2,000 cartons of dried fish suspected to be taken away forcibly from fishermen, fishmongers, and businessmen all over Borno State. So we decided to burn them so that we can send a message to these people. What they were doing was to sell these items in an open market at a ridiculous amount of money and use the same proceeds to sponsor their terrorist activities.
Meanwhile, the Victim Support Fund is partnering with the National Emergency Management Agency to tackle the humanitarian crisis in northeast Nigeria. Charged with the mandate of supporting victims of insurgency, 410 pregnant internally displaced persons in Borno State are the latest beneficiaries of cash donations. This is in addition to the dignity kits given out almost a month ago to the same category of victims.
Seated here are internally displaced pregnant women and nursing mothers camped in Maiduguri, the Borno State capital. The National Emergency Management Agency has brought them to the government house to receive support fund from the state government. About 3 weeks ago, coordinating agencies in charge of the IDPs gave out dignity kits to some pregnant women. They're back to give to more expectant mothers and an additional 10,000 naira to those who've already given birth.
All victims of insurgency are today very vulnerable and badly affected, but particularly so women and even much more so the pregnant ones. And we thought that it was important for us, in whichever little way, to work together to relieve a little bit of the challenges that the women face.
It's just a fraction of what the agencies hope to achieve in support of the victims. The plan is to work closely with each other to do a lot more.
Our critical partners, not only the victim support for all our partners that we are working together, will make sure that we are going to see that we did not make any duplication of efforts. We will bring them together to see that we arrest the problem of our camps and the distress in Borno State.
Living in these kind of conditions can take its toll on anyone. The victims are grateful for any help they can get.
I gave birth in camp. I thank God there was no complications. Today, I'm filled with joy, and I'm grateful to the state governor and all the people taking care of us.
Gestures such as these are needed to alleviate the hardship that the IDPs are going through. While they are appreciative of the intervention, they certainly will welcome more from anyone who cares to give.
The presidency seems set to reverse the immediate past administration of Goodluck Jonathan on the cancellation of the military training of Nigerian armed forces in the United States. Latest reports say that President Muhammadu Buhari is now ready to restore the United States military program to train Nigerian troops. The training has become necessary because of what the government calls growing aggression in the Northeast. The United States Ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. James Entwistle, insists that Nigeria and the United States have a military training agreement. 6 years of Boko Haram attacks in the northeast region of the country have resulted in over 2.1 million people being internally displaced. This grim data is coming from the International Organization for Migration, IOM, after a revision of the previous figure of 1.5 million. According to the IOM, the new figure released in Abuja covers IDPs in Adamawa, Bauchi, Borno, Gombe, Taraba and Yobe, as well as Nasarawa states and Abuja. The increase can be attributed to the intensification of attacks carried out by the insurgents and improved access to parts of Borno state that were previously inaccessible. The IOM says almost 92% of those displaced by the violence in the region now live in host communities and others live in camp-like sites. The organization is also raising concerns over the welfare of the IDPs and urges the authorities and humanitarian partners to speed up the delivery of adequate assistance to these people. Boko Haram began carrying out several vicious attacks in 2002, and in recent times, many suicide bombings involved young women and girls. Well, in the meantime, former Minister of Finance, Idika-Kalu, has expressed worries over the incessant attacks of civilians in the northeast. He told our correspondent, Loretta Shiogo, that rather than spend monies posted as security votes for the purchase of patrol vans for the police, state governors should join hands with the military in fighting insurgency in the northeast.
I think, well, the administration has come in with a mantle of change. As far as I'm concerned, those are the things that would definitely be of concern to the general public. There is no question that the bulk of security responsibility lies with the central government, with the federal government. I also see the perception that not only must we, as the service chiefs themselves have said, we must upgrade our armed forces, the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy, but also the police. Now, if we are going to make sure that we have an upgraded security apparatus, at a time we had resources like we did, we really should have done that, and it's still quite a worry that we didn't to the extent that was expected. They are still quibbling over what has been ordered and not delivered, what is outstanding. But both in terms of skill, in terms of modern equipment, in terms of personnel, in terms of other facilities that make them sustain their high morale so they can defend the nation, I think that more and more, a lot of these resources should really be with those who directly deal with them. And I think the states should really increasingly pay more attention to some of the basic services. Things that have to do with social services, water, schools, clinics, rural roads, meeting the needs of farmers and small-scale producers, and so on and so forth, rather than where you find scores and scores of vehicles being bought and donated to the police. I think those are the things that maybe the public will expect to see a significant review.
In part 2, after the break, 100 days of Buhari in review. Politics under assessment. Please stay with us.